All right, Kyle, you can begin whenever you'd like.
Great, thank you, Jesus. And welcome everybody to the February 16th, 2022 meeting of the CB6 Executive Committee. My name is Kyle Alvey and I am the chair of CB6. This meeting is being called to order at 6:34 p.m. And tonight we are joined by District Manager Jesus Perez. Tonight's minutes will be taken by the CB6 office. And we will now take attendance by roll call.
All right, good evening, everyone. I will call your name, and when I do, please answer present. Excuse me. Kyle Alvey.
Present.
Thank you. Alvey Barroso.
Present. Present.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of a delay here. 1 second. Thank you, Alvey.
You're welcome.
Matt Bondi. Cannot join us actually tonight. Claire Brennan.
Present.
Thank you, Claire. John Kelly.
Present.
Thank you. Sandy McKee. Sandy McKee. We'll come back. Rich Mintz.
Hi, Rich is out, but it's Abby here as vice chair.
All right, thank you, Abby. Kevin O'Keefe.
Present.
Thank you. Matt Roberts.
Present.
Thank you. Jean Santoro could not join us tonight. Sandra Sherrod.
Present.
Thank you. Going back to Jean. Phil, are you here in Jean's stead?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Mark Thompson.
Present.
Thank you. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Thank you. Claude R. Winfield. Claude L. Winfield.
Present.
Thank you. Reshma Patel.
Present.
Thank you. All right, and we do have quorum.
All right, thank you, Jesus. The agenda for tonight's meeting appears on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. So members of the executive committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom. All right, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the December 15th meeting and the January 19th meeting were distributed to executive committee members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt both sets of minutes. Committee members, if you object to adopting either set of minutes, please raise your hand through Zoom and note which set of minutes you object to. All right, seeing no objections, the minutes from the December 15th meeting and the January 19th meeting are adopted. Before we begin, in order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. First, no one may speak until granted the floor. Second, committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please first raise your hand through Zoom. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. Any and all such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information such as an email address or link that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will first identify you and then you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. And last but not least, we are required by New York State law to have a transcript of this meeting. So please keep all questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. So I will now deliver my chair's report. The first thing is I want to, even though they're not on this call, I want to thank B and Ann for leading a really wonderful service for Rick this past weekend, as well as to our board staff. It was really a lot of moving parts, but I think for everybody who was able to attend, it was a really wonderful and meaningful experience, and I think a great way to start our tributes to Rick. And of course, as discussed before, we would like to do in-person things. So we are coordinating on that as well, surrounding a bench dedication to Rick. And I know some of the committees want to discuss some other ways to recognize Rick as well. So once those are actually finalized, then we can do something in person. I think that'd be a great opportunity to get everybody together and connect in person. And hopefully it's safe at that time to do so, which hopefully fingers crossed. Next up, I want to remind everybody about the new meeting cover sheet that we are using. So please continue to use those. They're pretty straightforward, but if there are any issues that you are having on your committees, please do reach out to me with any of the feedback that you're hearing from any of your committee members, and we can set some time in our March meeting if there seems to be any glaring issues. But if not, please continue to work within your committee as is. And then last, I just want to remind, because I've sat in a couple of committee meetings and spoken to several of you about preparation for meetings and getting into some procedural drama that is quite unnecessary and time consuming. So I do want to remind you that you can prepare resolutions for your meeting. And in fact, I actually encourage it because it actually gives the committee and the public to see that drafting process and to be included in that process. So if there are any topics that you believe you want to put a resolution on, I would encourage you to write that ahead of time so that can be discussed within the committee itself, and that we're not sort of like, rushing at full board to put something together. So please, if you need any support in that, please reach out to me. You can reach out to your committee liaison as well. And with that, I know in terms of structuring the committee meetings over the course of several months, some may feel the pressure to produce a resolution at every meeting. I want to reiterate that you do not need to produce a resolution at every meeting. You can devote several meetings to the production of one resolution. So I would encourage you again to map out your meetings, how they connect with one another, and produce resolutions in that way, particularly if you want different viewpoints, if you want different stakeholders, if you want to invite people to speak on it, please make sure that you're mapping it out correctly. And again, we are there to support you in that construction. And last but not least, I've been talking with Jesus and the board staff about providing each of your committees with the agendas that you have put together over the last year. The idea behind this is I would like each of you to review those agendas and see what things actually were followed through on. There might be some things that we haven't heard back on. So I would like you to review those and see, first of all, the thread that has continued over the last year for each of your committees. If there are, specific topics that seem to need more attention on, that can help you in producing agendas ahead of time for future meetings. But if there are also things that we made asks about that may have just fallen out of our attention span, it is a good time to reevaluate that and bring that up again so that we can follow up on that and make sure that we're getting the results that we had requested. So I will have the board office send the agendas for each of you to each of the committee chairs so that you can review that. And if anybody wants to schedule one-on-one calls to discuss them or future meetings, I'm available for that as well. So please let me know. And with that, I'll yield my time and send it over to District Manager Jesus Perez.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, forgive me. I've got a couple different screens going here. All right, a few things. One of the things the office has been working on is trying to update our list of community organizations. If you're not aware, It's actually in the city charter that community boards should maintain lists of community organizations for their specific community districts, and make the list available to the public upon request. Now, the charter also says, the charter is a little bit outdated in that it says that we should maintain a list of name and mailing address of the organizations, and that we should seek the, so that's the outdated part, but it also says that we should seek the organization's specific consent before sharing the mailing address with the, excuse me, with the public. What we're going to put together is something that's more public friendly. Obviously, these days, many organizations have websites. So I don't imagine that there's any harm in just disseminating those because they are already publicly available. But as far as, for example, contact information for the various officers of these organizations, we are going to be reaching out to all the organizations to see if that's something that they would want released to the public. So we'll work on that. But as far as the list is concerned, it's coming along pretty well. Kevin actually already has an advanced copy of it. I believe he requested it so that he could sort of to help facilitate his invitations to community groups, to his particular committee meetings. I believe there were older versions, PDFs of old lists. Those are very out of date, so put those aside. If you need something like a list of community organizations for committee chairs, specific for right now, with committee chairs, if you need that, come to the office and we will provide you with what we've got. Once we've made a little bit more progress on something that's a little bit more public friendly, then we'll advertise that more widely. All right. Next, so it does look like we have another month of a meeting on Zoom under, excuse me, under Chapter 417 of the laws of 2021. Public bodies can meet remotely without permitting in-person access to meetings, provided that the public has the ability to view or listen to the meetings in real time and that the meetings are recorded and later transcribed. Chapter 417, however, is only in effect as long as a state of emergency declaration is in effect. Now, under Executive Order 11.3, Governor Hochul just extended that state of emergency through March 16th. That means that the authorization to meet on Zoom is extended until March 16th as well. If it is not extended again, the open meetings laws, in-person meeting requirements will go back into effect the way they were before the pandemic. I'll be honest and say we've not gotten any real guidance as to what the governor's thinking regarding this matter is. And any guidance that we get from the Committee on Open Government comes after the fact, after either something has been extended or something has not been extended. If you recall, CB6 passed a resolution back in November asking for, among other things, our ability to meet on Zoom to be extended for another year. Such a long extension is probably not going to happen. It does appear like if any extensions happen, they will be bit by bit for no longer than absolutely necessary. So we're going to begin in earnest preparing for the any contingency. The main one being that in a month, these meetings will have to start being required to be in person. Now, when meetings are required to be in person, as we saw last summer when this sort of happened again, when this happened before, compliance can vary, and I think it might be good, for example, to start to poll the members of the board again to sort of see where they're at. We've done this once before. Obviously, that was quite a while ago, and the pandemic was in a very different stage than it is now. So it might be good, unless exec has any major objections, to poll the board members to sort of see where they are about the prospect of returning to in-person meetings. And maybe even poll the public, our readers of our newsletter, to see where they are with that. Because it's anybody's guess right now whether we'll be allowed to continue this longer. But yeah, I mean, we'll be monitoring that closely, and this is one of the major things we're going to be working on between now and the deadline. That is, given that any committees, I mean, of course, you guys are the ultimate decision makers on this, but if you were thinking of perhaps canceling after March 16th, and your meeting happens after March 16th, that may be a good time to take a break for that month. So it'll be good to have some flexibility. But unless anyone has any questions, I'll stop there. I see Sandy McKee.
Yep. Sandy, go ahead.
Hi, I'm wondering if we have, if we are planning on kind of a hybrid solution. I think a lot of people find Zoom convenient as a way to attend, but other people find the in-person meetings to be also very helpful. So is there a way we could do both? Is that something we're looking at?
Yes, I mean, that's been the question this whole time. Like, it does not appear that there will be all that many resources or assistance with the hybrid model. Every board seems to be expected to go at it alone on its own. And yes, I agree. This is Zoom, for all its limitations, seems to work remarkably well, and is very efficient, and always produces a high quality recording of the meeting, which is also very useful. A hybrid meeting, there's no guarantee that will happen. Most likely, the people that are there in person will have the optimal experience, and depending on the place that we're at, depending on whether there's a tech setup that's amenable to that can accommodate us, the people at home on Zoom may or may not have a very good experience with that. So it's tough, because a lot of these places, some of these places have even been, that we normally would meet at, were not super receptive to having meetings there at all. And it's not, they aren't our spaces. So we can't sort of fit them with the kinds of cameras and microphones and things that we would need. So I can't guarantee that hybrids will be a decent option. We can always try. Is it a matter of finding some place to meet and then just sticking up some owl cameras? Sure, that's not terribly difficult, so long as we have the space and some outlets. Can I guarantee the result? No, I can't. And that's what's been very concerning. I mean, the push that, there's many people that are willing, that want to go back to in-person meetings for various reasons. There are many people that want to stay completely on Zoom, also for various reasons. And the solution seems to be, well, hybrids make everyone happy. Yes, but we don't have unlimited resources. We don't really have any assistance at all. There's no one agency that's charged with helping community boards navigate this. So all of them are kind of doing it on their own. So we'll see.
So we'd have to pay for our own Zoom? Is that one of the concerns?
No, that's not, no. The borough president's office had been paying for the Zoom account, and this new borough president has committed to paying it once it comes due in March, re-upping it for yet another year. At that point, though, this raises the question whether it'll even really be necessary. The Community Board 6 can pay for its own Zoom account. The thing with that is that the decision was made to allow the borough president's office to continue paying it, because they have a special bundle deal that gives us extra features that we would not be able to get even with our own individual pro account. So that's why that arrangement is there.
Yeah, and just to build off of that, I think the ideal is some sort of hybrid, but it is still an experiment at this time. So we'll have to see how it ends up working.
So yeah, I mean, maybe, have a meeting only if you really have to, and sort of be patient, and we'll be learning together. But yeah, we're going to be really working on this. We could have yet another month after that. We could have even several more months. We don't know. And that's the thing. The state has not given us any guidance on this, and they do seem, bent on keeping us guessing the whole way. So that's about all I have on that. Any other questions?
I saw, Philip, you had a hand up. Was your question answered?
I see John Keller's hand.
Yeah, Phil's was up before. He just turned it down. But do you still have the same question, or?
Yes, I do. What's NYU's position on us using their rooms like we did 2 years ago?
It's been a little while since I've contacted NYU, but I'll reach out to them again. There is the NYU Dental School, which is a different contact. They've been not responsive. Actually, our normal contact there went away, and we had another one, and they have not been responsive. So I'm going to try something else to track someone down there.
All right, and John?
Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, that's bad news about the dental school. That's such a convenient location. But my point, what I wanted to make was, is this a catch-22 in relation to the requirement to have a recording, a transcript of every meeting, if we are just putting this together on the fly? I mean, I'm just wondering, especially now that we're all used to this nice new form that we can use in place of detailed minutes. Thank you.
I can only speculate right now, but the requirement to have a video and a transcription and all that came about when everything went on Zoom. That was not there before. So my guess is it will go away. So we won't have to be on Zoom at all if we don't want to. Nothing in the open meetings law required that before. And most likely the transcript requirement will go away. All that stuff that came with the pandemic will go away. But of course, after 2 years of meeting like this, it seems that like in the 21st century, it's a shame to not have this as an option, as a quality option for people who can't make it on, on the night of, or who may want to review what was said at the meetings. But until there are more resources and support directed at this problem, we got to do the best that we can on our own.
Thank you, and I agree with you.
All right, I'm seeing no further questions.
All right, that concludes my report then.
All right, thank you, Jesus. We'll now move on to committee business. So the first up is Environment and Parks. Kevin?
All right, I'll be there in a second. Thank you. Well, family matter here. Sorry, I've got a family matter here. Give me like 10 seconds. Okay. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Okay, recap of last month's meeting. As a guest, we had Ken Conyers, who is the Parks Department's Deputy Chief of Recreation for Manhattan, pretty much known as the borough permits guru, at least for the Parks Department. What we saw from the community, we heard from the community, is the East River Park, of course, as it goes more offline, space is more at a premium. And with that as a backdrop, the community wants to know about the decision-making behind park permits. Now, we know the Parks Department is able to prioritize youth activities and permitting, but there is concern that athletic fields for local nonprofit teams are being squeezed out by youth for-profit travel teams in for-profit clinics and camps. Many in the community believe that community leagues should not be crowded out by these travel leagues where participation is limited and screened. Ken said that they are working on expanding their digital capability for permit applications and promise to take more equitable criteria into which groups get the fields going forward. As Kyle noted, sometimes it takes more than one meeting before a resolution can be formed. This is a topic that we are going to continue for at least one more meeting. Jesus addressed the needed list of community organizations. We continue to have one community group per meeting. Let us know what's on its collective mind regarding environment, parks, cultural affairs, and landmarks. This month, we had a Kips Bay pickleball group that has grown to more than 200 active players at the St. Martin Park handball and basketball area. Their big request was lights because they play so often, even after shoveling snow in the cold weather. We worked with parks to allow the group to borrow park shovels. And I got a nice note that they're very thankful to the committee for allowing us to give them a soapbox. As far as the upcoming agenda, yes, the community group, we're looking at having a group from the Bellevue South community as our next presenter. We will confirm that over the next couple of days. Yes, status of NYC Parks. I think there was some editing there in general, or CD6. No, this would be in CD6. There are a number of construction projects the community has been asking about, especially about work that was scheduled to be finished but has not even started. Some of the projects the community has been asking about: Bellevue South Park, an ADA accessible dog run and reconstruction of the basketball court, playground and seating areas, but also work at parks that include Murphy Brothers and St. Martin Park. So yes, that is for the district. Gramercy Park, today the office of the Park City Council member followed up on this with us. The council member's office reports that they are working on this and let us know that the borough president's office may have some resources and staff for collaboration. So we'll follow up accordingly there. Last year, I must admit, my fault, we got a late start on budget items, and I want to make sure we have ample time this year to consider the recommended budget items. So that will be a priority going forward each meeting. And I think that's it for the agenda. As far as committee vision and new goals, we will be adding more on the topic of cleanliness, in the scope of the committee. The Murray Hill Neighborhood Association representatives at a previous meeting made the case that sanitary streets and parks and other public areas is an environmental issue, in part because they said unkept space can attract rodents. I know, Kyle, you've talked along these same lines in the past. Making sure we work with other committees as needed. We may be looking at designing some plans for more sanitary public areas. On requests for partnerships, we'll continue to keep CB6 leadership in tune, but I can't think of any right now. That's it for me.
All right, Kevin, I'd actually like to see if we could get on the agenda a discussion about the public library branch.
Thank you. You know, I would love to. Let's go ahead and do that.
I don't think you need a special speaker on that. I think that's something that can be discussed amongst the committee itself. And let's definitely pull Ann in on that as well, since she has a very close connection to that branch, because I think if we lose that branch, that will impact the community a lot. And so let's see what we can do. I guess it's kind of related to budget, but whatever we can do to maintain a branch in our district.
Absolutely. And may get in touch with Ann to get more background, but happy to do more research on that.
And Sandy, do you have something on that?
Well, just that Anne is on land use, and if you wanted us to take it up in land use, that would also be, I mean, it's basically land use, a library. I don't know if that's a more efficient way to do it. We don't have a lot of big issues coming up, but it's up to you.
So I'd like to keep this one with Kevin, and then I think if there's any major follow-up on a specific land use type thing, if it comes to the specific location or rent, then we can bring a land use in as needed. Because right now I'm just thinking of something very general of, saving the library. For now. And Kevin, you can put in and get some stats about the circulation and the attendance and stuff like that. That should be included in a resolution.
Okay. Sort of along Sandy's lines, what's your feeling about where does sort of sanitation, cleanliness, call it what you will, but where does that fall? Do you see that as more of an environmental issue or a transpo or land use?
No, that's a you thing. Environment and parks. Yeah. And then if it is related to things like outdoor dining or whatever it might be, you can pull in the appropriate committees as needed, which would, I'm assuming, be business affairs as well as transportation.
Okay, yeah, because I've always thought at least the sanitation department is always a transportation item for me, but thank you. I appreciate that.
I have a few questions. So just to confirm, the community group is not confirmed yet, but you are working on that, Kevin, right?
Yes, and it'll probably be a group from Bellevue South. I will let you know as soon as we know.
Okay. And as far as this discussion of the status of Community District 6 Parks capital projects, is someone from Parks doing that? Is it you're going to ask Sheena to do that? Should we reach out to Parks? How are we doing that?
Ideally, I'd like to see Steve Simon there, and I wanted to, I guess we can talk about that now. Steve, of course, is, I think the best representative on capital projects. If he can't be there, certainly Sheena or anyone else that can update us. We do expect community members online, though, that as soon as they see this on the agenda, are going to want to have answers. I want to make sure it's somebody that can truly give updates.
All right. And would you like us to invite Steve Simon, or do you want to?
That would be wonderful if you can invite Steve Simon.
All right. And excuse me. I saw your email regarding the Gramercy Park deed thing. I'll get back to you. I'm sorry, I've been a little behind.
And then Kyle and I were Kyle was copied on something from a council member's office today about that as well.
Okay. So I have not seen that, but yes, we'll maybe forward that to me so that we don't get our wires crossed. And then
absolutely, it shouldn't have anything to do with the forward role of what you were addressing.
Wonderful. And regarding the library branch item, should we reach out to Anne, or do you want to loop her in?
Again, if you can send a request out, that'd be wonderful.
All right.
Actually, Jesus, let me send a connection just to Anne amongst all of us. Yeah.
All right, Kyle. We'll invite Anne. All right. I believe everything else is fine. Sheena has her standing report and all that stuff. And Kevin, as far as the budget request, if you need sort of a refresher on that, I'd be happy to go over some of those with you.
Oh, yes.
Between
yes.
We maintain the Airtable of the budget.
Yes, I would, even
Just
have an in-person meeting or whatever it takes, because I want to make sure we're really on that this year.
Okay, I'll have Alex set something up.
Okay, I'm sending you the Gramercy Park email right now.
All right, then that is all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay, I've got to jump offline for a second. Sorry.
I don't think I saw B here. She had wondered whether she should attend these meetings. I don't know if any decision was ultimately made.
No, we'll move on to the next committee. All right, so Phil with transportation.
Yep, thanks, folks. So the February agenda, I see that NYU presented on the relocation of their bus stop. That is an ongoing issue, and they may come back in March to discuss that further. Also from the February agenda, well, in the March agenda, we'll move on to. There is possibly DOT will update us on a shared street for East 43rd Street between 3rd Avenue and Lex. Actually, DOT confirmed, NYU will not present. I think it's DOT will not present, at the March meeting regarding the 43rd Street. We will discuss presentation to have a loading zone in front of the former Ibostar Hotel at 70th Park Avenue. They are reopening their hotel. They want their loading zone back. That is a March agenda item. Also, in the March meeting, we will continue talking about Grand Central Terminal and possible efforts to redesign and pedestrianize. We'll also hear from DOT. But in the meantime, the Transportation Committee is going to build a template for street co-namings. We're going to try to standardize it. And Brian Van Nieuwenhoven will spearhead that initiative between now and then. So if you or a member of your committee would like to comment or add some input, please speak with Brian directly. Also, I'm going to begin addressing transportation budget items with Reshma. We will have more information on that after the March meeting. Moving on to item 3, request for partnerships. I'm going to defer to Jean on that. As for the committee vision, I'm also going to defer to Jean. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Phil. Are there any questions from the executive committee? Brian, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify my involvement with the co-naming thing. So we talked about it in the meeting, and I suggested that we handle it as a task force outside of the meeting because we didn't want to take the better part of a committee meeting kind of batting around the issue and raising concerns and not having a plan forward. So I said, let's have a task force and they'll come up with a resolution. We'll present it when we can. And then Anne says, Brian should head the task force because he suggested it. And I'm like, I actually don't care about it. Do it anyway. So I will convene it. I have to mention that I am helping to facilitate us writing a resolution that will have a plan based on what the volunteers in the task force come up with. However, Anne is the only other member of the task force at this point, and it's going to be a task force from the Transportation Committee. So I believe only Transportation Committee members will be concerned with it. We can take outside suggestions, but one of the things we're hoping doesn't happen is that we present a plan that seems to make sense to us and suddenly get a lot of pushback from people who are looking at it for the first time and then suddenly have an opinion about co-namings. I think what my aim is to try to get as much reasonable input into this as suggested. But again, it's one of these issues where I feel like we talk about it more than we actually kind of have to get some of this stuff processed. I feel like people feel that the co-naming thing is kind of out of control, and in reality, it can be processed pretty orderly. But I am definitely open to suggestion as to what to include in this. And I know that there are some people who have raised big concerns about us continuing the processes. So if you have anything for me, just send it along to me. We are not going to convene anything until March and probably past full board in March because I am tied up in some personal business at the moment. But I will convene Anne and anybody else who steps up to the task force sometime next month for us to talk about what our priorities are in a resolution and to put something forward as a draft. And it'll be presented at April's Transportation Committee. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
All right, thank you, Brian. I'm not seeing any questions. Any questions, further questions for Phil? Jesus, do you have anything?
No, this one's pretty well sorted.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's move on to the next committee, Health and Human Services. Alvey, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We had a difficult meeting last Thursday. So we were reviewing a reso that was drafted by one member about the traditional Medicare versus the Medicare Advantage. And there was a heated discussion between two members. One member was pro traditional Medicare and the other member was pro Medicare Advantage. And the outcome of the meeting was that members of the committee voted not to pursue the reso. And for the month of March, we don't have any agenda topic. And so we'll probably cancel the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Alvey. Brian, do you have a question for Alvey, or is that from before?
No, it's from before.
Okay. All right, let's move on to budget and governmental affairs. Reshma.
Thank you, Kyle. So at our February meeting, we passed a resolution in favor of the State Senate Bill S808, which we approved at full board last week, and that is the one fair wage bill as it's known. In our next meeting in March, we're going to discuss another piece of legislation. There's this issue with what's called church ballots, which is people who go to vote, but they're at the wrong election district, but they're in the right assembly district. And right now, what we found out from the election that happened last year was that there were about 14,000 ballots that weren't counted. And there were people who went to vote, filled out an affidavit ballot, but it wasn't counted because it was turned in at the wrong election district. And so we want to support this bill and make it easier for people to vote. And last year, we had written a resolution to allow for this, and nothing ever happened with it. So we're hoping that it can move forward this year in time for the election that will happen this November. And I appreciate Phil and Kevin mentioning budget requests. We haven't gotten anything back yet from OMB from what we submitted last year, but once we have that, we will share that with everybody so you can see what comments we got. And the other thing that, usually what we've been doing in the last couple of years is sending out just the Airtable, which has the request listed. But what we want to do is take a look at the full report this year and see if there's text around that we want to change. So each committee chair will be receiving the paragraph related to their committee. And if you can review it and see how you would like to change it, that would be great. And I will be sending everyone an email regarding that.
Awesome, thank you, Reshma. And just as a follow-up to what Jesus was talking about, do we have any follow-ups on the Zoom accessibility? I know we put out on the resolution that just asked for an extension, but for them to speak further about it. Do you think you want to discuss that anymore at the?
No. Yeah, so I wasn't aware that this was going away until you mentioned it. Mm-hmm. And I guess what I was gonna do is reach out to Harvey, and because he was the person who last time had, come and spoken to us when we wrote that resolution, but also reach out to our other electeds as well, and also to the borough president and see, if their office can do something. I know it makes sense we kind of fall under borough presidents, even though it is a state issue.
Yeah, I'll actually be mentioning it tomorrow at the borough board. So just wanted to make sure we all have every duck in line.
Yes, and also because it is kind of all of a sudden for people too. in terms of finding space and everything.
Mhm. Perfect. I see Phil has a question.
Thank you. Freshman, does OMB normally not respond when we should update our budget request?
No, we get
Or if they do. Mhm.
we get a response usually in January. And this year it hasn't happened, but we also had a change in administration after 8 years. So I assume that perhaps there's been staff changes. Or why, yeah.
Jesus, you ever hand up?
Yes. I'm sorry, I forgot my question. Give me a minute. No, you can go on to someone else. I forgot my question.
Oh, okay. Brian, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Rush was right. We haven't gotten anything yet, but the mayor made a big set of announcements today that his budget is prepared. So we should be hearing pretty soon more about that. But yeah, it is pretty late in the cycle based on my experience. And again, we should review it pretty closely because we don't know what the new mayor's priorities are. Like I didn't hear anything today in any of the news reports about details. And we have no idea about possible community board cuts when he said that he wanted every budget or every agency across the city to cut 2 or 3%.
Yes, I didn't see that either. And as you pointed out, right, it is usually we would have this plan probably by the middle of January. So this is kind of late because of the administration change.
Okay. Hey, Jesus, did you?
All right, yeah, now I remember my question and a statement. Reshma, you may want to reach out to Senator Hoylman. I believe his office has been working on a piece of legislation that will help give community boards some flexibility in whether they use Zoom moving forward. I'll try and dig up the bill number, but that may be a great place to start, his office.
Okay, no, I will reach out to him. And thank you for the reminder. I actually think he had proposed a bill even in August, but that never moved forward. And so perhaps it's that same bill that he's still trying to push forward.
Right. And secondly, this discussion that you've got regarding these companion bills, you will lead the committee through this discussion, or do you need a speaker?
So I have reached out to a group called Let New York Vote, who is an organization, an advocacy organization that brought up this issue. It's how I heard about the issue, and I'm hoping that a speaker will come from there. None of our electeds are sponsors of these bills. Dick Gottfried is one of the co-sponsors, so we could invite them, but I wasn't sure because as we found out from this last bill that we discussed, when someone's a co-sponsor, the office actually doesn't know that much about the bill.
Okay, so for now, we'll just say that you're securing the speaker.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Phil, go ahead.
Thank you. Reshma, when ideally would you like to have the board's updated budgets finalized with you?
So, I mean, if we have, technically, we don't submit till October 31st. So we have we have a considerable amount of time, but once this month, when I send you the paragraph, if we can start looking at that, and if you can tell me what you think in terms of how you want to word the request, and then once we have feedback from OMB, start taking a look at it and thinking about budget items that you'd want to take out or add. And if we can do something before we break for the summer in July, that would be great. So then it's not a rush in the fall because we'd have to put it all together and it would be just the September meeting that we would have.
Before the summer, thank you.
Yes.
All right, I'm seeing no further questions, so we'll move on. Thank you, Reshma.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, you want to talk about public safety?
Sure. So last month we focused most of our meeting on quality of life issues and public safety priorities in discussion with the business improvement districts, which, as you saw last week, we passed a resolution calling for a task force to be established. Basically, you know, it's a big mess. It's a big web that needs to be untangled. And you know, I think there's plenty of resources out there. I don't think we need more money thrown at anything. But people need to work together, and different agencies need to cooperate, and perhaps need to be restructured. So I think that was really, you know, what we wanted to get at there. So we'll see what happens if a task force is ever convened on that. And of course, we have tomorrow's meeting, which we'll be talking with the district attorney's office on their philosophy going forward. A lot of media attention on that all year. So we'll see what the turnout from the public is. I know there's a lot of concern about crime, even shoplifting within our district. So we'll see, you know, how much is dealt with that. And for March, we will cancel the meeting. It is St. Patrick's Day, and there's obviously a lot of uncertainty with the executive order. So that's pretty much it for public safety.
All right, are there any questions for Matt? All right, seeing none, we can move on to housing and homelessness. I believe Abby's
Hi, it's
here.
Abby. I didn't get a chance to really connect with Rich before this meeting. He has some family things going on at the moment, but I can give you a little update on last night's February meeting. So we had representatives from DSS, DHS, and Breaking Ground come to present on the new stabilization bed site at 15th and Irving, which is the old Seafarers location. So they've confirmed that it's no longer operating as an emergency shelter, but rather is functioning normally now, I guess you could say. And there's room for 100 beds, and they are open now. There was not the community opposition we saw at the January meeting. We only had 4 individuals in attendance. But Breaking Ground gave a good presentation. It sounded like they were very thorough. They mentioned that there's a possibility of a community advisory board forming, and we discussed on the call that we would like to be involved. So that was one agenda item. The other one was a discussion of good cause eviction and protections for market rate tenants. And there was actually quite a bit of interest from committee members on this topic. Sandra had done quite a bit of research, and there was a lot of interest from the committee. So I think we'll probably be pursuing that at our March meeting. If we have it, need to check in with Rich. Yeah, that's it. Do you have any questions?
All right, seeing no questions from the committee. Jesus, do you have anything?
No, until we hear back from Rich, what he intends to do, we'll just sit tight.
Okay, so let's move on to youth and education. John?
Yes, and the Zoom news definitely took me by surprise. So it is definitely TBD, hopefully Zoom. And we, at our last meeting, we had a very interesting presentation and discussion about publicly funded private schools for kids with disabilities, and learned quite a bit about them. And I've learned even more trying to prepare a resolution for presentation at our next meeting. Apparently there was a bill that both the House and Senate, both the Assembly and Senate, passed unanimously, and asking for an increase in a permanent increase in the funding of these schools to make it equal to public schools, and the governor vetoed it. And then I dug into why the governor vetoed it, and basically she would like to have it part of the state budget. So we're going to have a resolution around that, urging the Assembly and the Senate and the governor to basically, and say it more politely, get their act together as to how these schools are funded. But we did finally find her grounds for vetoing it. The upcoming agenda is what I want to do. We want to have a discussion. So at the next meeting, so on our meeting on Tuesday, which is really our next meeting, we will be discussing school food. I had a very good conversation, a Zoom meeting this morning with the head of menu planning for all of the DOE and the District 2 food people. And I think we're going to have a very robust discussion at Tuesday's meeting on that. And hopefully the publicizing of this will have attracted some advocates. I promised the DOE that this was not an ambush. We weren't setting them up, but they, there could be some people there who are feel strongly about this issue. So we'll see how that goes. The agenda for March 22nd is as it is stated. We've been promising to have a discussion related to school buses in the district basically all year. And a lot of people, there's even been some media interest in this recently. So we are going to go ahead, assuming we can hold the meeting with this. There was an article in one of the newspapers recently that said that, buses weren't showing up again and kids were not getting picked up, and it's, it is a mess. And Ben Kalos, when he was on the city council, had a wonderful resolution to put cameras on buses before the city council to deter drivers from going around them. And I'm hoping to get Ben to be at the meeting, or whoever is now carrying that flag in the city council to be there. And we'll get someone from the DOE Department of Transportation, to come and deal with these questions. And then there are advocacy groups, one or two of which I've identified that we will also be inviting. This is still, 5 weeks away, so we're mostly focused on next Tuesday's meeting, but I think we'll have a robust discussion of this topic, assuming that we're able to meet. In terms of long-term looking backwards, we did have a resolution on crossing guard for PS 116, and the board office was kind enough to look into what the heck happened on that. And Jesus is here, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. But what's happened is that the precinct is sincerely trying to find someone to be a crossing guard. But these jobs, even in a better economy, are in another economy, are very difficult to fill. They're low paying. If you go on duty from 8:15 to 10 in the morning, and then you have to come back in the afternoon. So we're trying creatively to find people who might find that kind of scheduling, that fits their life and puts a few extra dollars into their pockets. And our vision for the committee remains as it has been, which is to address very practical issues that affect our schools and our kids. And, that's what we've been doing for these two meetings, and certainly with the 116 reso. And I do want to work with Reshma on, our committee has been notoriously bad about getting our budget materials vetted and done. So I will probably look to dedicating a future meeting to just going through it for once and seeing what we're missing and what we have. And I guess that's it.
Phil, I see you have a question.
Yes, thank you. John, who are the other organizations, you can just list them, who are going to address the school bus issue?
As I said, it's 6 weeks, it's 5 weeks away, and we don't have them identified. We've identified them, but I haven't got out to them yet.
Thank you.
And John, just another point, I know we've discussed this offline, but arts education, might want to add it to this agenda as well to have a conversation about that.
I know I got your note and I appreciate it. There is a lot of discussion about arts education. So is this at the high school level? Is this like talking about admissions criteria for middle and high schools?
Admissions, but actually just having it in the curriculum for K to 12.
Okay, yeah, sure. No, I can,
yeah, nothing too intense.
Just I can, no, we wouldn't do it right though. So yeah. I'd like to find someone then at the, you know, Kevin McGuire was very kind to put together our food meeting for next week. And I don't want to go back to the well too many times, but I'm sure he'd be able to find someone from his staff or District 2 who deals with arts education. I know there's a lot of interest in it, that it's felt that this is something that is not emphasized enough. So yeah.
Yeah, I can actually, let me find somebody so that we're not just going to the like DOE staff or anything like that. So let me, I'll find somebody and I'll put them in connection with you.
Was there an article or something that you saw? I don't mean to drive.
There was an article. Well, obviously the budget came out today, so we'll see more specifically what has been allocated, but there was an article from December that I forwarded to you. I just caught it last month, but basically about how arts education in the pandemic was cut severely.
Oh yeah.
So it hasn't returned there. So basically the ask is to return it to what it was. But obviously, you know, advocates have been fighting for more, you know, making it akin to, you know, getting rid of math class in schools. So just a discussion. I don't think we need to go into like the specifics of admissions or you know, even curriculum or anything like that, but just something more.
Oh, sure. No, that would be useful. And you know, and speaking of the budget, you know, it was in the news today that, you know, there was just this year there was a 6% decline in enrollment in public schools in New York City. That's a lot of kids. And combined with the year before, I think the public schools in New York City are down nearly 10%. And going way back to a resolution we passed last year, which asked that that schools, traditionally you have to give that money back if you project enrollment and you don't get the kids. The school has to give the fair student funding money back to the DOE. And it was announced and featured in the one of the papers, at least yesterday, that the DOE is going to have to shell out something like $230 million to keep schools whole in the face of declining enrollment. So we'll see where we can find money for other things, but this is clearly only a one-time thing. If enrollment does not come back, then, you know, you're looking at job cuts, and you know, that gets into all sorts of other issues, especially with the unions. So but it's $230 million that the city has to push into schools to keep them whole, based on a drop off in the fair student funding formula allotments to the schools. And I want to thank Rebecca Seawright's office, who I worked with on the publicly funded private schools for special needs kids issue. They were extremely helpful. She's on the education committee, and they gave us all sorts of information that should make for a robust resolution in our meeting next week and before the full board. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. I'm just not seeing any questions from the committee. Jesus, do you have any questions for John?
Yes, so we're adding a second agenda topic to this, discussion of budget cuts to arts education programs in district schools or in like schools all over the city, or?
What were you thinking, Kyle? I mean, I'm happy to put it either way. I mean, I think the
I mean,
citywide
we shaped
phenomenon.
it for our district. I mean, any decision obviously would be citywide anyway.
No, this is a hot topic. It's you know, that, and you actually drew the connection to math, and you know, well, that gets into philosophical discussion, so we're not going to do that right here. But let's just say Manhattan.
Right, district schools.
District schools, right. So I do encourage people, I think we're going to have a couple of interesting meetings coming up depending on the Zoom situation. So, and I would say the agenda is no longer TBD, or this is what we want to do, but the venue is TBD, and you know, that could have an effect on things.
Right. Yeah, I can't guarantee that Zoom will be possible, but if it's not, then I guess it'll have to be in person.
Yeah, let's cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay, and you're going to secure speakers for this, or you're going to lead a discussion on your own?
No, I think I want to go. There is a Department of School Transportation, and I'm going to go to them. If I can't, you know, break down the doors, I'll ask the office to help break down the doors. And if we tell them that we're going to have advocates there, it might help loosen up the doors.
Okay. All right, so we'll post the agenda, but I guess we'll wait to hear back from you about your success at getting some of these speakers.
Yeah, and I'll be quick. Well, I got to get through next Tuesday's meeting first, just because there's a lot of moving pieces in that meeting between school food and the resolution. But then focus on the buses after that.
All right.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, we can move on to land use and waterfront. So Sandy, go ahead.
Yes, we had a discussion of several electric vehicle bills that are in front of the Assembly and the Senate. And actually, it turns out there's quite a range. I think there were something like 10 different bills. So a group of people from the committee are going to take another look at that. So that's, I guess, under old business. We'll be doing that. And we have the CAG meeting for the ESCR is coming up next week, Thursday, if there's any issues that we want to discuss for that. That's not meeting related, but we always have the update from Desiree on construction. I think one of the things that we're looking to try and get at the next meeting is someone from the Parks Department to come. Again, I think they feel they're going to be ambushed because they've never really come up with a solution for what to do with the Greenway. And it is not contiguous anymore, and people have lost recreation space, and we really don't have any clear idea for what's going to happen there. So we keep asking for them to come, but I'm not sure they will. And the community planning fellow, I think one of the things we'd like to have after the end of this is some actionable items that he can generate for us. I think that would be a really useful outcome if that can happen. And so he'll give us an update. And I know, I think anybody who wants to have any input, we've asked for it several times from the entire board. So that's certainly good to have. One issue that did come up that Brendan forwarded us, it was from the Murray Hill community group, that apparently the governor has asked to eliminate the cap on the 12 FAR for residential areas in New York City. And I'm actually not that familiar with the issue, but they suggested that we ask that it not be removed. So that's maybe something we can address under new business. I'm not sure we have information on it. We can try and gather something by then, but it's probably a new business item that we might address with the reso at the meeting after that. And I think that's, in terms of reaching out to other committees, we had talked about trying to do a little more comprehensive analysis of some of the homeless housing, supportive housing, et cetera, that we have in our district. We did get a very good map from the last, I guess it was 2 board meetings ago. So I'm going to ask if there's a group within the committee that might be able to take a more comprehensive look at that we could address it again in the next committee meeting after that. And we will plan to have a March meeting. We don't have our community planning fellow for very long. And so I think we really want to keep having meetings to get feedback and keep him working. And I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Sandy. I see a hand up from Abby. Abby, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to see if you could share that with Rich on housing, that report on housing.
I think he gave it to me.
Oh,
So,
okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I've spoken briefly with him about it. Apparently it is something we do have a lot of information, but it's in kind of dispersed forms. So to pull it all together and make it understandable is what I'd like the members of our committee to try and pull that together.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, I'm seeing no further questions from the committee. Jesus, do you have any further?
All right, so just to be clear, the agenda is this as written, and then the electric car thing and the FAR thing will be old and new business.
Yes.
All right, are you all set, Jesus?
I'm sorry. Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll now move on to business affairs and licensing.
Hello, everyone. I just want to also introduce Anton, who's here. Sorry, I probably should have done that during attendance, but he has been helping facilitate the open restaurant conversation because, as I mentioned, working for DOT, there is a conflict of interest there. We haven't had our February meeting yet. Our January meeting, we saw some applicants, as always. You all are familiar with the water club issue, but they did not show. We're giving them an opportunity to come in February to answer our questions. We'll see if they show up or not. And additionally, again, this is for February, which is on the 28th, I'm pretty sure, of this month, but we're going to continue the open restaurant discussion. I'm not sure if Anton wants to speak a little bit on that right now.
Sure.
Thanks again for coming.
Yeah, the last meeting we had, we did discuss the open restaurants, and we talked about a number of different items and concerns that the members of the committee had, particularly the design of the structures of safety, equity, private business on public property, enforcement or lack thereof. And between then and now, there have been a number of situations that have come up, including the city running a meeting on February 8th, talking to this situation of continuing the open restaurants program. And this, I understand, has been quite a meeting. I was there for the first couple or 3 hours. It kept on going on and on. But basically, there were a lot of concerns from various different stakeholders and from the community and from different community boards. Community Board 1 also has been looking at this, and they did put together a resolution of which we have a copy. And I think, Jesus, if we get that sent to our members of the committee, they can get a fair idea of where Community Board 1 is. And I think they've done a fairly good job of discussing in those resolutions the concerns they had, the suggestions they had in terms of going forward, and how the community board should be involved. And I think that's a very important situation going forward. The community board should be involved in whatever the final regulations are, so that there is a say as to the licensees that are being given out, and whether they will or will not have an effect on the community, just like we do for the liquor license resolutions. Just yesterday, in the Gothamist, there was a long article on the future of outdoor dining in New York City. And one of the things they stressed is that since the meeting of February 8th, the DOT has said there will be no more dining sheds. That's the way they're going. I mean, that was a very, very big issue with many of the members of the community and members of the other community boards, because these structures, among other things, attract vermin, garbage, and really do not contribute to the city streetscape. In any case, what I'd like to do, what the committee would like to do, is go forward on this and prepare a resolution along the lines of what CB1 did, speaking to our particular concerns, because CB1 and CB6 are two different areas of the city, and we do have a very high ratio of restaurants here in CB6. What I'd like to do, we'll be discussing this a little bit at our next meeting, which is on the 24th, and I invite the chairs from the Transportation and the Land Use Committee to attend the meeting, or if they would like to open it also up to any of their members, because this is a situation which transcends just the Business Affairs Committee and goes on to Land Use, and it goes on to Transportation, because obviously many of these restaurants are using Department of Transportation space on the street. The end of this, the end result is maybe a couple of meetings from now, we'll be able to draft out a resolution representing the views of the board and send that to the appropriate city agencies. Any questions?
Abby, is your hand up, or is that from before?
Sorry, from before.
All right, thank you. Sandy, go ahead.
I actually had a question for Claire. If you've heard anything back from the Water Club?
No, we have not. So no correspondence back from them about our negative resolution or acknowledgement even that they knew that that was being sent. I'm pretty sure Alexandra just sent the invite for the next meeting like yesterday or the day before. So, but there's been no response from them on that either, unfortunately.
And I will say about the open restaurants, I think the more we learn about what the DOT has proposed, the less opposition there is. So will the DOT be making a presentation, or this is without their input that the discussion will be happening?
I wasn't really able to secure anyone to come to one of our meetings, unfortunately. I think that they're doing a lot of various outreach in other instances, and they aren't going to be coming to our next meeting, unfortunately. So Alexandra and the board office did a really good job of compiling some resources that we can forward out and maybe add to in advance of the next meeting. But yeah, there's just a lot going on, and I couldn't get a commitment, unfortunately, from anyone.
And we did have a fairly comprehensive presentation at Land Use. Does the board office have that?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The presentation that the DOT made on the open streets, that they made it to Land Use back when it was before Land Use Committee. Do we have a copy of that presentation that could be shared with the for the meeting that's coming up?
I'll be honest that all of these meetings kind of run together. So if you could give me
Oh, I'm sorry. It was, but I'll find it it was a resolution that we passed, I guess, last fall, but I'll find it and I'll let you know, because if we do have a copy of it, it was informative.
Okay. If it's a resolution, I'll look at it on the tracker and then track it back to the meeting. If it was during the pandemic, then the video's on YouTube. So.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
So you want us to, what about that meeting? You want us
Well, I
to
just
send
thought we could share it with and I'm going to call it BASA because that's what I call it. But if we could let them look at that, because it was informative. And especially if the DOT is not going to be present, it did give quite a bit of information about some of the proposals.
Okay, I'll share it with Claire and with Anton. And Anton, just to be clear, you want us to send, I don't remember whether we've already sent it to the committee or not, but if we haven't, you want us to send the CB1 resolution to your committee. Yes.
Yes.
Are you speaking to me, Jesus?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I think it should go to the committee chairs.
To the committee chairs?
Or the land use and transportation.
Yeah, I think we could probably send it out to the committee members too, to get them started to think about it. And then in addition to sending that resolution, we could invite them to join us at our next meeting.
All right, to the bulk, I guess, as it's known now, committee, and to the land use chair and to the transportation chair, and extend an invitation to attend the next bulk meeting to give input.
Yes.
Okay. Additionally, at the most recent Borough Service Cabinet, a lot of the district managers, myself included, mentioned that their boards were talking about this issue and potentially drafting resolutions. CB1 obviously already finished theirs. DOT happened to be there to give some reports. And one of the frustrations that was expressed by a few boards is that we're not really sure of a timeline. For example, no one really knows how much time boards have to write a resolution because DOT hasn't given a deadline on that. And so while DOT was not able to commit to a deadline at that meeting, that happened a couple weeks ago, the borough president's office did urge them to say something at some point about when community boards should get their input in, because the feeling was that community boards would like to have their input before final rules are made so that we can react to them proactively rather than reactively.
Thanks, Jesus.
My apologies, I forgot that we're just getting in the poll for your committee. I believe just enough to make quorum have rescheduled for have said that they can come on the 24th. So we'll have to make a change on this, so it'll be on the 24th.
Okay, thank you for doing that. Thanks to Alexandra.
All right, are there any further questions from the committee or Jesus or the road office? Is that a no, Jesus?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's it for me.
Okay, perfect. All right, so seeing no further committee business, I will now move to old or new business. So if any committee member has any old or new business to discuss, please raise your hand at this time. Okay.
Kyle, I'm sorry. I'm not a committee member, but I have something I forgot to mention when they were talking about the crossing guard. One of the things the office is going to try and do is put this in the newsletter and get the word out that applicants are sought for this this crossing guard position. I don't know how successful it will be, but it's worth a try. I thought it might be a good idea, since some on this board have close connections with the beat reporter from Patch or something, that maybe we could put together a press release or some sort of even largely write an article and have them run saying that, oh, okay, you know, this school is lacking a crossing guard. There are no applicants. Here's where you can go to apply, or something like that, sort of a /informational /human interest story. I mean, I'd commit the office to do it, but we do have a lot on our plate, and I fear that it may not get done quickly. But I mean, we have people on this board, even on just this committee, that have press backgrounds or, you know, strong writing chops, that maybe one of them can take it on, and so that it could get done a little faster, assuming that people like that idea.
All right, John, I see your hand up.
Yeah, and also I think another thing you suggested, that Neil Barkley has close connections to 116. So he's going to reach out to the school and see if there's, to the PTA, and just say, hey, you know, anybody here want a job, you know, twice a day, you know, for a few hours as a crossing guard after training, which I thought also was a creative idea by Jesus that came from the board office. Thank you.
Okay, Phil?
Thanks. I wonder if, I'm not putting any more work on anyone's plate, if Reshma in Budget and Government Affairs has a contact in DCAS, maybe we could emphasize the need or needs, you know, maybe a few applicants could take morning shifts, some could take afternoon shifts, so it's less burdensome on time. But the point is, elevate the need also through DCAS.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. All right, again, last call. If there are any committee members who have old or new business, please raise your hand. Phil, I'm assuming your hand is up from before. All right, so seeing no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 8:01 p.m.
Thank you, everyone. Be well.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Right.